The average home in Toronto just sold for $1,050,000. That is almost 5% down from last year. And here's the part nobody's talking about. Sales actually went up 7%. More people are buying and prices are still falling. So I pulled the April's numbers for TRREB this morning. I'm going to walk you through exactly what's happening and what it means if you own a home right now or you're trying to buy one. Data tells a very specific story this month. And it's not the story the headlines are running. Let me break down the 6 numbers that matter this month. Total sales across the GTA, about 5,900. That is up 7% from April last year. More transactions are happening. The Bank of Canada rate sits at 2.75%, down from the 5% peak in mid-2024. Cheaper money is pulling buyers off the sidelines. But here's the catch. Active listings are sitting about 28,000. That is up 18% year over year. There are over 28,000 homes sitting on the market right now. For every buyer stepping in, there are roughly 3 sellers competing for their attention. New listings came at 17,000. That's actually down 9.3%. People listed this April than last April. So the inventory is not growing because of a flood of new sellers. It is growing because the homes already on the market are not selling fast enough. MLS Home Price Index, which strips out the mix of what sold, dropped 6.6% year over year. That is the benchmark. It tells you the underlying value of a typical home fell, not just that cheaper homes happened to sell this month. Average days on market, 26. That was 21 days a year ago. Homes are sitting 5 extra days. That does not sound like much, but in a market where sellers are already anxious, 5 extra days feels like 5 extra weeks. Now, let me show you where the pain actually is landing because it's not equal. Detached homes, $1.3 million average, down 4.1% from last year. That's the smallest drop of any type. So if you own a detached house in the GTA, you're losing value, but you're losing the lease. Semi-detached, $1 million, down 5.1%. Townhouses, $939,000, down 6.6%. Condos, $636,000, down 6.3%. The pattern is clear. The lower the price point, bigger the drop. Condos and townhouses are absorbing the most damage. These are entry-level properties, the ones first-time buyers target, the ones investors bought in 2021 and 2022 at peak prices. The MLS HPI benchmark tells the same story even more clearly. The composite benchmark fell 6.6%, but condos, they dropped 7.8%, and townhouses dropped 7.5%. Detached homes held the best at negative 4.1. Ground level housing with land is holding its value better than anything stacked. I want to zoom out for a second because monthly numbers can make you feel like the sky's falling. This chart goes back to 2016. Every property type peaked in 2022. Every single one. Every type has been declining since. That is 3 straight years of falling prices. Detached homes peaked at 1.5 million in 2022. They are at 1.37 million right now. That is about $175,000 drop from its peak, about 11%. Condos peaked at 758,000, now at 636,000. That's a $122,000 drop, 12% gone. But here's what the chart also shows. If you bought a detached home in 2016, you paid about $975,000. It is worth about $1.4 million today. You're still up about $400,000 over 10 years. If you bought a condo in 2016, you paid $416,000. It is worth $636,000 today, still up $222,000. The people hurting are the ones who bought in 2021 and 2022 at the peak. And the ones hurting the most bought condos at the peak because condos have the steepest run up and the steepest decline. Quick ask. I put these market updates together every month so you have the real numbers, not just the headlines. I'm trying to get to 600 subs and I'm about 70 away. If you're finding this useful, take a second and hit subscribe. It generally helps me keep making videos just like this. Back to the data. I want to talk about rates for a minute because they are the engine behind everything you're seeing in the data. The Bank of Canada started cutting in June of 2024. The overnight rate was at 5%. 7 cuts later, we're at 2.75. That's a massive drop in under a year. And in April, they held no cut. First pause since the cutting cycle began. What does that mean for mortgages? A variable rate that was costing you 6.2% at the peak is now around 4.5%. On a $600,000 mortgage, it's roughly $600 less per month. That is real money. That's the difference between qualifying and not qualifying for a lot of buyers. The fixed rates, though, they tell a different story. 5-year fixed rates have been hovering about 4.1 to 4.3%. They have not dropped as much as variable. The bond market is pricing in uncertainty. Trade tensions with the US, inflation still sticky in some categories. The bond market is not as confident as the Bank of Canada that cuts will continue. So the question everyone's asking, are we getting more cuts? The answer, nobody knows. The Bank of Canada held in April. They're watching employment, inflation, and the trade situation. If the economy weakens further, more cuts come. If inflation picks up, they pause or hold. What I can tell you is this. The rate today at 2.75, that is historically reasonable. If you're waiting for 2% rates to come back, you'd be waiting for a long time. The conditions in front of you right now are the ones you can plan. This chart tells you everything you need to know about where negotiating power sits right now. The green line is sales. The red line is new listings. Look at the gap. In November, they were close together. By April, listings are nearly triple sales. 17,000 new listings against 6,000 sales. The gap is why prices are falling, even though more buyers are buying. More buyers showed up in April, but the inventory pile is so large that it absorbs extra demand without pushing prices up. The sale to new listing ratio, SNLR, sits at 34%. Below 40% is a buyer's market. Below 30 is a deep buyer's market. We're right in the middle, firmly buyer territory. If you're thinking about buying, you have leverage right now that you have not had since 2018. You can negotiate. You can ask for conditions. You can take your time. Sellers know they are competing against 28,000 other listings. Let me put it all in one table. April 2025 versus April 2026. That is the positive signal. More transactions means the market is not frozen. People are moving. The rate cuts are working. New listings down 9.3%. Fewer sellers listed this spring. Some are holding because they do not want to sell at a loss. Some refinance at lower rates and decided to stay. Active listings up 18%. This is the number that matters most. Pile is growing. Homes are piling up faster than they sell. Days on market are up from 21 to 26 days. The average home takes nearly a month to sell now. That drags on seller psychology and leads to price reduction. SNLR went from 29.5 to 34.8. Technically an improvement, but still deep in buyer's market range. The floor is 40% for a balanced market. We are not close. So what does this all mean? Let me break it down for 3 groups, because the answer is different depending on where you sit. If you're a buyer, this is the most leverage you had in years. The Bank of Canada rate is at 2.75. Active inventory is at a multi-year high. Sellers are willing to negotiate. Condition to offers are back. Home inspections are back. Financing conditions are back. 2 years ago, you're writing offers with no conditions and competing against 15 other buyers. That world is gone. But here's the thing I tell every buyer I work with. Do not wait for the absolute bottom. Nobody rings a bell. The market does not send you a notification that says, okay, this is the lowest price, buy now. What the data tells you is that conditions are favorable. You have choice. You have time. You have negotiating power. That is what you can act on. One more thing. If you're a condo owner thinking about moving up to a house, the spread between condos and detached homes is $734,000 right now. A year ago, that spread was $733,000, almost identical. The gap is not getting wider or narrower. So if you're waiting for a gap to close before you move, the data says it's not happening. The entire market is moving together. If you're a seller, ice to today's market, not the market you wish existed, not the market your neighbor sold in 2 years ago. Today's market, April 2026. The homes that are selling are the ones that price correctly from day one. I see this every week. A home listed at 1.3 mil when the comp says 1.2 mil. It sits for 40 days, then 50 days, then a price reduction to 1.19, which is now below where it should have started. The seller chased the market down and lost positioning. Your competition is 28,000 active listings. That's not a talking point. That is the number of homes a buyer can choose instead of yours. You need to stand out on price, presentation, and on first impression. Staging matters more in a buyer's market than it ever does in a seller's market. If you own, you're staying, your home is worth less on paper than it was in 2022. That's real. But paper value is not the same as your financial position. If you bought before 2020, you're still sitting on significant equity. Detached home purchased in 2018 for $1 million is worth about 1.3 mil today. That's about $370,000 equity over 8 years. If your mortgage payment is manageable at current rates, stay the course. Do not panic sell into a buyer's market because of a headline. If you bought in 2021 or 2022 at the peak, the situation is tighter. You may be underwater on paper, especially if you bought a condo. But selling now means locking in that loss. If you can hold and cash flow supports the payment, holding through this cycle is likely the better financial decision. That is the April 2026 data. Every number I showed you came from TRREB. Sales up, prices down, inventory piling up, rates holding. And first time in a long time, buyers have the advantage. I'll be back next month with May's numbers.